Hello, welcome to Pins and Patience. This is the first video to give you a breakdown of what it is that I'm going to be working with to complete the Starfleet Duty Uniform Officer's Jacket. Other people know it as a uniform tunic. Many, if not all, Star Trek fans will know this as the uniform that is first seen in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and moving forward through many, many other movies. I've got this broken down here so you can see the tools that I'm working with, and I can go over the thread types. So if you do start working with these, you can look at the color matching and possibly use the same things. I live in Canada, so it's possible that you may have different brands and manufacturers of thread. If that's the case, sorry about that, but hopefully you can take some good information from this. First and foremost, hopefully you can see this with my laser pointer, this is the main fabric that I'm going to be using. I purchased this from a local fabric store. I think it's about as close to the maroon that you're going to see. Technically it's called a wine burgundy, but I went with this color because it's certainly nowhere near as red as you've seen some monster maroons, and it is a bit on the darker side. But once you add light to it, I think it's going to get a little washed out, especially in photos or videos. So going from there, that's what I'm using. The black fabric over here, that's the main fabric I'm using for my pants, as well as the belt loop which goes on this tunic. That is a black polyester twill. This is also a polyester twill as well. It's got a mixture of cotton in there. So I'm going to start first with the black thread. This is Coates and Clark, and it's black thread, and its product number is 900. Going back to the maroon, going back to the main part of the fabric. This is also produced by Coates and Clark, and the item number on this is 2820. So if you're going into the fabric store and you're looking on the Coates and Clark wall, you can use that number and find the appropriate thread that matches. I did use the same thread on my pants, and of course I used the same material for the Division Command stripe, and I couldn't see any of this thread, I'm going to say, being in contrast to the main body of the fabric. So it worked well. I thought it matched really well. My scissors here, these are Henkel scissors. These are the Superfection Classics. I've got a standard shear. This is a utility scissor, and this is what I use to cut my threads. Rotary cutter here, brought to you by Fiskars. This is a 45 mil. Got your standard stitch puller, and people would also call this a seam ripper. I like to call this my seam saw. Try to get this into focus for you. Possibly not. But on this item here, hopefully, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there are little teeth in here, which definitely help when you're going through to make some corrections, which I certainly have. So I like that. That's my little seam saw. Everybody's little pin tomato. Standard 60-inch tape measure. This is the painter's tape that I use anytime that I'm marking solid type of fabrics. So again, solid colors. If you're having to work with, say, a front and a back, and with this pattern, they don't have notches. There are no notches in this pattern whatsoever. So to save myself some frustration and to help me within my learning process, that's what I use this green tape for. Standard ruler. This is both in imperial inches as well as in metric. And then this here is my cutting mat. I've got a second cutting mat, so I'm able to use the entire length of my desk here. And finally, my sewing machine, which is not in frame. That is a Janome Skyline S9. As we carry on, I'm gonna open up open this up here, and it does have some information about what you need to work with. Liners, belt linings. It's got some some direction. It's got some pictograms here. It tells you about what's going on with some of the colors, divisions. In here, it's working with your cording and how to assemble the cording. Then it's also got some directions for placement of rank and the department color fabric. And the one thing that, again, if you're more familiar with sewing and more patterns, they'll actually have essentially a finished size. But this pattern does not. And I'll say it right here. The measurements given are guides, do not due to material shrinkage or stretch. Your wearable size may vary slightly. I'll be honest, these patterns, your wearable size is going to vary greatly. Definitely have to take the time to do a lot of measuring, a lot of remeasuring before you do any cutting. Very important. So that breaks it down. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that I've given you some information about the things that I'm using. If you have any questions, please write them. If you have any comments, make them. And if you're a seamstress or a tailor or someone who's got years behind the sewing machine, I'd love to hear from you. Please give me some tips, some tricks. Critical feedback is always important to me, especially from people who are educated in the craft. I'd ask that you subscribe, please. It would certainly help me, but I think it would help some of the other Star Trek fans who are in this process and wanting to learn a bit more. Thanks again for joining me. My name is Jeremy, and this is Pins and Patience.